Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of June 18th, a regular meeting of the San Ramon Planning Commission. Please, we're called to order at 6 p.m. Okay, can the recording secretary please conduct roll call?
Okay, Chair Wallish and Commissioner Ahmed are absent tonight. Commissioner Alpert,
Here.
Commissioner Curtis,
Present.
Vice Chair Kuznick.
Here. All right, item number 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. If we will stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Okay. Item number 4, public comments or written communication. At this time, members of the public may address the Planning Commission on any item not already included in tonight's agenda. If you would like to speak, please fill out a speaker card located in the back of the room and submit it to the recording secretary. We will not be taking any public comment via Zoom. So, Madam Recording Secretary, do we have any late communications or speaker cards for items not on the agenda?
No.
Okay, very good. Okay. All right, so thank you so much. We do not have any public comment. All right. Okay, we are going to close public comment on non-agenda item. All right. Item 5, additions and revisions. Do we have any? I do not believe so. We're getting the negative nod. Okay. Item 6, the consent calendar. So on the consent calendar, we have 6.1 minutes of the Planning Commission regular meeting, May 21st. Do we have any written comments about this item prior?
No.
Okay. All right. So is there a motion to accept the consent items?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent items.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Shall we vote? Yes. Okay. Very good. The motion passes 3-0 and 2 no votes. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, let's go to item 7, continued items after closing a public hearing. There are none. Oh, pardon me. So sorry. Item 8, continued items. There are none. Item 9. Okay, public hearing, new items, the Avalon Bay Bishop Ranch 3A apartment project. We have a staff report. Mr. Barr. Mr. Barr, it's all yours.
All right, thank you. Good evening. I have a brief presentation, after which the applicant is here to do a presentation as well, a little more detail than I'll provide, after which I'll be available for questions. So let's go ahead and get going here. So the project is located on the Bishop Ranch 3A site at 6200 Bollinger Canyon Road. General plan designation is mixed use city center. Zoning district is city center mixed use. It's 5.74 acres, and it was part of the City Walk master plan. As you recall, that's a much larger plan, about 135 acres in total, and it lays out different neighborhoods within the region. And so this is one project that will basically be taking place in the 3A neighborhood. So you'll hear that reference from time to time. So just in terms of a little bit of history, this parcel goes back to it goes back many, many years, but in recent history, the 2007 City Center Master Plan or mixed use approvals for the project were, again, back in 2007. It had a combination of retail and residential. That was replaced by the 2020 City Walk Master Plan, as I mentioned. This particular 3A neighborhood was analyzed for 791 residential units on 3 parcels. There's the North Parkway Green, which is a small park space. There's a hotel that's already been approved to the west of the project, and then another area that is a future site for more additional housing. Also in 2022 was the City of San Ramon Walking District Master Plan, which borders this project along Camino Ramon, and then also the access along the Bishop Drive extension to the Iron Horse Trail. So there was a prior concept review that was done in late 2023. It was in November. We did some massing diagrams, talked a little bit about architecture and site plan. The project before you tonight is significantly similar to the concept review, just far more refined than what you saw then. So tonight's proposal is 457 apartment units within 2 buildings. The northern building is 7 stories. It's a wrap design with 11,400 square feet of leasing amenities and 640 parking stalls within the central parking structure. The southern building is 5 stories, includes a courtyard with a swimming pool. The breakdown of units are shown here. The majority are 1 and 2 bedroom units with some studios and 3-bedroom as well. So here's a site plan that shows the project in the context of Iron Horse Trail. Bollinger Canyon Road is to the right. The blue line is the Iron Horse Trail, and then the red line is circulation to the trail. You can see the parking structure in the core area. The section below shows the relationship between the parking structure and the units, and then the pool, and then housing toward the Bollinger frontage. So this is the revised renderings for the project. The project did go to the Architectural Review Board through a voluntary application, and there were some comments that were provided. Your staff report has the attachment of the response to comments based on the ARB recommendations, and the applicant will go into more detail on how they responded to those changes. This is a view from the Iron Horse Trail looking south. View from Bishop Drive extension, and then from Camino Ramon, or the vacant parcel that is a future housing site. You can see that there are breezeways connecting the parking structure to the adjacent apartment building closer to Bollinger Canyon Road. So this is just a quick sample of the materials and the color choices. There's a combination of siding, different shades of plaster, as well as hardy panels, and a mix of different color tones as well. With regard to parking, the city standard actually calls for 783 parking spaces based on our current ordinance. However, there are some limitations that are afforded to this project under state law. Under the state density bonus provisions, the maximum requirement is 563, and that's based on a modified a space per unit count that's laid out in this slide. In addition, the applicant has provided a supplemental parking study based on a program that they've used in some other projects that shows an unbundled parking concept with 1.1 unit per 1.1 spaces per unit, where a total of 503 required. And the purpose of this study was to provide some additional support that parking would work for this particular project. The project currently provides 662, including the surface parking along the private streets. There's also a condition in the conditions of approval for a parking management plan, just to be clear on how that all will work, making sure we know where guest parking is and how people will come and go. In terms of the California Environmental Quality Act, there was an EIR done for the City Walk Master Plan, and that looked at the breakdown of units throughout the entire project. The 4,500 units for this particular area, there was this 791. This particular project results in 88 fewer units So as such, it doesn't result in any substantial changes that were beyond that was already analyzed in the prior EIR. The mitigation measures associated with both the City Walk EIR as well as the general plan EIR will be applicable as conditions of approval to this project. So it's covered under that prior EIR. We provided a draft resolution for you. It has project-specific findings for the applications as well as CEQA, conditions of approval. It has attachments of the mitigation monitoring and reporting programs for both the general plan and City Walk. We provided the outside agency comments for reference. We now also include housing no net loss tables as a reporting requirement to the state to make sure that we have reserves and don't get ourselves into a deficit. I would also mention, I provided an errata sheet on the dais for you. There were a couple of revisions related to improper references to Bishop Ranch 1A versus 3A. Property owner references needed to be corrected, and then a few clarifications of conditions of approval just to help with making sure it's clear as to what the requirements are. And so that the assumption is that those red line changes would be included into any recommendation tonight. So the recommendation tonight is to receive the staff report, receive comments and presentation from the applicant. We're going to open a public hearing, close a public hearing, discuss the project, and hopefully adopt a resolution subject to the conditions of approval as revised. So with that, I'd like to turn it over. If you have questions for me now, that's fine, or we can wait till the end and do it then, but I'd like to turn it over to the applicant. So
I
I'm
believe
gonna-
the applicant is.
Sorry, Nora Collins with
Okay.
Avalon Bay.
Great. Thank you. Welcome again.
Back there and
Perfect.
Hi, thank you, commissioners, for having us here today. While much of the project that we're discussing today remains the same from the submittal at the beginning of the year, still, as Lauren just mentioned, 457 units around 2 buildings. We've spent much of the last 3 months really working to respond to the comments that we received both at our meeting in February and some of the comments we heard in November, as well as the comments we received during the Architectural Review Board meeting. To really think through kind of how to best meet the neighborhood and the community. As a long-term owner and investor and a long-term operator of our apartment homes, we really wanted to make sure that we got the design right, both for our residents and really to greet the gateway at Bollinger. And so we've spent really the last couple months thinking through different tweaks, first starting at tweaks and then moving to a much grander change that we're really excited to present to you today. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Chris, who's going to talk through our changes, and look forward to talking through the project this evening.
Good evening, commissioners. Let me see. Very good. So good evening. My name is Chris Hagelin. I'm with BAR Architects. I am really excited to be here and to see all of you again. BAR has been involved out at Bishop Ranch for many years on City Center and had the pleasure of working with Sunset on the City Walk Master Plan. So really nice to be involved in one of the first vertical buildings, and thank you for taking the time tonight. So as Nora mentioned, we've met 3 times with the different city agencies, as well as discussions with Sunset and staff and Lauren, and have spent a lot of time thinking about those comments, and we've distilled those comments really into 6 comments or 6 issues, and we wanted to go through each one of them with you. Well, I'm sorry. And so those issues are the Bollinger Canyon architecture. A second issue is the building color. Third is parking. The next issue is the walking district and the Iron Horse Trail. 5th issue is vehicle site circulation. And the last issue is landscape. So that first issue, Bollinger Canyon architecture, and this is a quote from the Architectural Review Board. On the southeast corner of the 5-story building fronting Bollinger Canyon Road, consider breaking the upper floor's corner element to create additional articulation that would draw similarities with the 7-story building. So this is the corner as you come in off Bollinger Canyon Road into the project, really the corner that we consider the front door. So in each of these slides, you're going to generally see a before and after. So on the left-hand side is the previous submittal to the planning commit to you all, planning commission back in February, also the same image for the Architectural Review Board. And on the right is our proposed revised solution. So this corner, we agree is very important. We tried to, the Architectural Review Committee had sometimes conflicting opinions, it's somewhat subjective, obviously. And so trying to distill their comments, but also very much BAR's thoughts on this, interacted very closely with Nora and the team at Avalon and Sunset as well. So we agree it's an important corner. So the changes we've made is we think have improved the project. So we've taken away what had been a brown element with a white frame, and there were some also discussions about color, but we've introduced this white element. So we've got a green bar, if you will, that's running along this eastern side of the building with these white bays that are at a slight angle that interact with a recessed deck. And we think it gives it a very nice cadence. And we like the contrast between the white and the green that really we think creates a lot of pop and interest at this corner and more movement. And it's a little, it kind of ties with the building as you move further to the north. There's a series of what I've called fingers in the past, these vertical elements is kind of a smaller version of that. So also gives an area for Avalon to have signage. And just overall, we think it presents a nicer front door to the project. Along Bollinger, and now kind of back a little bit, an image again on the left-hand side showing that same corner a little bit further away now, and the new image on the right, which you can see here. So that green bar that we were looking at is the one on the right with the white. There's a kind of a complementary version of that on the left-hand side that is along the EVA that has the same white and a single bay, and then it gets simpler. The white bays do not repeat as it moves along the that western face. Color. So there was a lot of discussion about color, and there's been a lot of discussion amongst the team about color. This is, again, a quote from the Architectural Review Board. The color scheme reads a bit flat due to too much of the green color palette. Consider adding another lighter color that offsets the brown colored tile, since the plans do not show much difference between the green colors. So again, on the left-hand side is the previous submission, right-hand side is the new. So this is along the eastern face of the building at our main drop-off and midway down the course of the project. So on the left-hand side, you can see we had a lighter, very pale green together with this darker green and the white and brown accents. And now you can see the new proposed rendering. So on the left-hand side, you see those white cranked bays that we saw previously moving down towards this main entry piece. And then the areas to the right are really unchanged, although we have darkened the darker green a little bit. We just think it creates a better contrast to the white and the wood, faux wood element, brown element. Still talking about color, so moving further along the east-hand side on the north side. So again, on the left-hand side, a previous submittal, on the right, the new submittal. Really not much change here, just darkening that green a little bit. And then you can see on the far left-hand side that entry piece where we started on Bollinger. Again, we think that darker green creates a really nice contrast with the white frame. And then the base is a lighter gray, whereas previously had been a little bit darker. And then the final image, this is the corner looking from the northwest. So again, the image on the left was the previous. That little bit more washed out, lighter green. And then here the new image with the darker green, the lighter gray base. And then way off in the distance, you can see the building as it moves towards Bollinger Canyon. And so here's the color board with the two new images. The color palette and the materials are fairly simple. The green element you're seeing is a cementitious board, a Hardy panel is sometimes called. That's a manufacturer, so it's a It's a board that is screwed into place and painted. The light gray and the white are both cement plaster. And then the wood, kind of quote unquote wood, we want something that looks like wood. We don't want to use wood. Wood doesn't perform very well. It starts to not look good pretty quickly, especially in the climate, the hot climate here. So there's several products that make a simulated wood that really we think look quite nice. We haven't quite settled on what that product is, but it'll give the appearance of a series of vertical wood slats. Parking, as Lauren mentioned, there's been some discussion about parking. So this chart hopefully shows it to you a little bit in a kind of a simple graphic way. So on the left-hand side are your San Ramon standards, which for a project of this size would call for 781 total spaces. The next slide over is state law. So through the state density bonus law, the state has set requirements for different unit sizes. And that, based on that state law for this project, that would give us a total of 563 spaces. The next bar over, the lowest one, so based on working with Gibson Transportation Consultant, they did a review of various projects in the East Bay that were felt to be similar, and they had come up with a demand of 502 total spaces, 1.1 space per unit. And then on the right is where we currently are. So I think the team felt that the Gibson study was probably a little bit too low for this specific site here. We felt like that having more than that would be good. So we are proposing 662 total spaces. 22 of those are street spaces on our property, and 640 are in a single garage. So higher than the parking study, higher than state law, not quite as high as your guidelines, but approximately 1.45 spaces per unit. The next point, the walking district and the Iron Horse Trail, a few different comments that were brought up. Ensure their project meets the walking district goals, which are primarily to promote a more pedestrian-centric community. Number two, consider ways to enhance the relationship and connection to the Iron Horse Trail. And the third, explain the relationship between the Iron Horse Trail Bridge and the new property. So this is on the north-hand side of the site. Our building goes sit out on the right, and then there's an existing parking garage to the left. So you can see our new proposed connection coming from City Center Page south to the west, coming up to Iron Horse Trail. So in section, hopefully this is legible in your package, the bottom section is straight out of your walking district plan. So it calls for this particular area to have approximately 35-foot landscape plus total landscape and trail area, with the trail itself, the sidewalk itself being 8 to 12 feet wide. And up above is our proposed section. On the right-hand side, you can see our new building, the Bishop Drive extension, and then on the left-hand side is our walking corridor. So again, hopefully you can read the numbers. We are showing something that's 35 feet wide. The trail itself, or the walkway, is 10 feet with a 2-foot shoulder that's in decomposed granite on either side. So the total width of that is really 14 feet. So plenty of room for pedestrians and bicycles to pass each other. And then to the left is the existing parking garage. So there's more landscaping. We're just showing what's, we're not really in control of what happens in that parking garage. And here you can see a rendering. This is looking from City Center, looking to the east towards the Iron Horse Trail in the park. You can see our new proposed building on the right, the Bishop extension, and then there's some existing trees on the left, and you can kind of see grade out the parking garage. But really nice wide path, new landscaping, and as well as supplementing some of the existing trees. Another area was the connection between our new trail to the Iron Horse Trail. So the Iron Horse Trail is the blue dashed line at the top of the page. And what we're proposing is a seating area where these two trails connect. So you can see this is now looking from Iron Horse Trail, looking to the west towards City Center. And so we've created a space here where we can have at least a couple of benches where people can relax, sit, meet people, and kind of celebrate the intersection of those two trails. There was a question about just how does the new bridge that is being built interact with our project along the east edge? So I've got two sections for you. One section maybe it's a little hard to see on the graphic, but it's fairly closer towards Bollinger Canyon Road, about a quarter of the way down our eastern street. So on the left-hand side, you see our new proposed building. On the right-hand side, you see Iron Horse Trail. So Iron Horse Trail and the bridge is coming from an elevated portion over Bollinger, and it starts to drop down really gradually as it meets grade. So in this area where we're showing it where it's maybe halfway up, you'll see on our property, well, there's our access road, there's about a 10-foot landscape area that's on Avalon's property. And then there's about another 10 or 12 feet of landscape area that's part of the county/city property. And then there'll be a retaining wall. I mean, that's part of the construction of the bridge that we're not involved in. So you can kind of get a little bit of a sense of people walking there up above. And there's quite a lot of distance between the bridge and the building, and something that we feel is going to be a nice kind of relationship between the trail and the bridge and the building. And now as you come further down, you're heading north, you're about 3/4 of the way along our building edge. The trail has touched down onto grade and just becomes an on-grade trail. So on the right-hand side, you see that trail, again, another 10 or 12 feet of county, city landscaping, and then about 10 feet of landscaping in the access road that's part of the new Avalon project. Vehicle site circulation, the connection to Bollinger, how does the site circulation work? Second point, the EVA, the Emergency Vehicle Access, consider potential recreation spaces as part of the Emergency Vehicle Access area and make it into a dual-use area. So here's our site plan. So the question about the connection to Bollinger, point 1, and the EVA, point 2. So here's that connection to Bollinger. So the upper sketch is a very early sketch of our understanding of how that connection would work. So originally we thought there would be a single lane coming in, a single lane going out to hit Bollinger. There's an existing signalized intersection there that light will be expanded upon to right now the light doesn't serve people coming out of this because there's nowhere to come out of. And then down below is the new plan. So in working with the civil engineer, traffic engineer, there's another lane that's been added. So there's now 1 lane dedicated to come into the project and 2 lanes dedicated to leave. 1 lane in the middle will be a left turn only, and the lane closest to the bottom of the page will be allow you to go straight across or to turn right. So not a major change, but a kind of addressing the anticipated traffic on the site. The next comment about the EVA space. So this is a space to the west of our building between our project and the future building to the west. And so this is for our purposes of our project, this is only for emergency vehicles. It would have some sort of bollards or be blocked off on the left-hand side. And the upper slide is what we had proposed before. The lower slide is not radically different, but what we are proposing is more a turf block or where grass is coming through a turf that the fire department can drive over. So it has just a nicer green feel to it. We've got some front stoops there, a sidewalk. And here you can see a rendering then looking to the south with our building to the left, future building to the right with the sidewalk and this new EVA play area. And I'm going to turn it over to Todd from Creo to talk about a couple of landscape. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good evening. I'm Todd with Creo Landscape Architecture. I'm the principal in charge on this project. And I think as Chris and Nora have mentioned, we've been working very closely with the city ARB as well as the Planning Commission and also our partners at Sunset to develop a landscape plan that I think is appropriate for the climate and also to create a walkable, enjoyable community. And so I'll talk a little bit about the specifics of the planting here, but what we have here up on the screen right now is essentially 2 different comments that we received from the ARB and that we have addressed. And so they're fairly minor comments, but comment number 1 is consider more vertical columnar tree species adjacent to the building. And so we've done that. And I'll show you in the plan here in a minute. And then the second comment is consider planting location of Arbutus marina trees because they can litter the ground with droppings. And so we've done that as well. And those are, again, fairly minor comments, but so here's our landscape plan, which I think Chris has already addressed a bit, but I'll talk a little bit, I guess, I'm going to take a step back and talk a little bit about our concept. And so in working with BAR and they have, a concept, of course, with the architectural design, and our concept jives with that. But in particular, the landscape concept is derived from actually like the California sort of seismic activity. And so the fractures and the idea of like fracturing the landscape. And that's why you see in the paving patterns, some lines sort of jutting through the site, and the paving patterns and the actual pool has sort of like an angular shape. And so those lines project through at the ground plane to kind of break up the landscape and create interest. And so you also see that in at the EVA access where the lawn is. And so there's a mixture of lawn as well as paving that break up the sort of space. And so that's kind of that's sort of what you see in terms of the forms of the landscape. But then as it relates to the planting along Bollinger Canyon Road, we have sycamore trees. So we've got large, those 35-foot diameter, large shade trees, pretty standard. And then as you enter into the site on, sorry, I do need to check some notes here because there's a lot of plants, but okay. So along the access road on the top portion of the page there, we have evergreen elms. So those are going to be about 25 to 30 foot in diameter. And those are the larger trees that you see on the plan, and some of the smaller trees that we have along the closer areas, the sort of more narrow spaces up against the building. Those are Japanese Zelkova trees. And then at the entries into the courtyard space, we also have a mixture of jacaranda too for some color with purple. Then at the node, which Chris talked about, so where the Iron Horse Trail intersects the multi-use path that projects to the west, we've located some oak trees and some seating there to kind of create a node or a place of interest, and also a visual sort of focus as you drive into the site at the end of that, the bend in the road there as it turns back towards the west, you see some large oak trees. Then on Bishop Ranch Road, which is the smaller sort of road running on page left or north, we have Chinese pistache trees, which are also about 35 feet tall and wide, going to provide a ton of shade, very drought tolerant, and those are on both sides of the road there. And then turning back on the access road towards the planned south, we actually have Betulus Niagara or birch trees, and those are the reason we have those trees are because we have stormwater planting there, and so there's only only so many trees we can use in those zones. And then working right further again to the south, in front of the stoops and sort of in the EVA access area, we have smaller trees. We have ginkgos. And so those will of course flower in the winter or sorry, they'll become very colorful in the fall, yellow. And of course, most of the plant material we've selected here is drought tolerant, except for the trees that you see in the stormwater planters, because they need to be able to handle the moisture. With regards to shrubs and ground covers, it's all going to be drought tolerant grasses and succulents with a variety of color that's all appropriate and a part of the design guidelines here at Bishop Ranch. So I think that kind of covers the landscape. Oh, and here we have some images. Sorry. So you can see the variety of trees here. So I did leave off. So we also have some red maples here on the top left corner, the ginkgo with the yellow, the Arbutus marina, which is sort of, that's a cousin of the native manzanita. So it's drought tolerant, has a nice red bark and sort of like a transparent foliage. And then the jacaranda with the purple at the bottom right. And those are our trees. Thank you. And then I'll hand it back. You're done. Everybody's done. So any questions? No. Okay. We're done. Okay. Thank you.
So any questions for staff for the applicant, or did you want to do public comments first, or what's the commission's pleasure?
Commissioners, do either of you have questions for the applicant or staff?
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
So on the very last page, it talks about a turnaround and loading area. Where is that located at in terms of? Yes,
It's on the west side. Tell you what, let me,
what map would I look at would be the best I would need to give me where that would be?
well, I can show you. It's basically right here on this. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you bring up the screen, Amy? So where I've circled here is there's a basically currently a dead end. It may change once the final parcel is developed. Hotel is to the lower left. And so then the turn off and or turnaround and utility areas here. And there'll be some fine tuning and of turning motions and things like that as part of the site development level. Likewise, with some of the street parking areas and clearances for turning will be refined as we go.
More questions?
That was a big one.
That was, okay. Commissioner Albert?
That might be a good picture. Could you explain, I'm trying to visualize the west side where the one lane in, the two lanes out across the street. Is that the street that continues along into the adjacent? Up there? Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
so
that
this is gonna become a four-way intersection with the what's currently called Bishop Ranch East.
east? Okay.
But right now there is a turn pocket that goes into this area, as well as a turn pocket that goes into Bishop Ranch 1A. And so this will complete essentially a full.
Okay, that makes, okay. Okay, I was trying to visualize that. And then it's right turn in only from coming this way from,
It
on
would be
going-
right this way or this way.
there will be a left turn lane coming in.
Yeah, there's
Okay,
an existing turn pocket.
got it, got it. Okay, and it's one lane on the one side and it's two lanes coming out. Is that what I saw?
Mhm.
Right, and so turning motion this way would come out and then a free right, depending on traffic, obviously, or straight across.
Okay,
And again, the intersection geometry, I don't want to step on the traffic engineers domain
No.
here, but ultimately the geometry and timing of all that will be worked out.
I was just trying to put it in context in the picture there. And then just out of curiosity, in the conditions, there was mentioned that you were going to work with staff on the perpendicular parking places. Could you point out where those are?
Yeah, so right now, if you recall, there was a comparison of the prior concept review with this. Right now, there are 90-degree parking spaces. Sorry, I'm not drawing it
That up
very
in there
well.
someplace? Okay,
Here versus parallel that were in the concept review. There's some issues with the city standards regarding backing into travel lanes. And so we're going to have to work through that design. And that's why the question of whether or not, 22 guest spaces would be there or maybe slightly less. So
okay.
again, when you get down to a site level, you can start to look at those dimensions.
Gotcha.
It's
Okay.
just, it's rough right now.
No, that makes sense. Backing into, I guess, a traffic lane seems hard. Okay, those are my two questions.
Great. And I just want to review, for the sake of the public record, is the question I had previously was the EVA road, to what impact or what might impact when there are future developments to the west, to that road and how it connects in. And if you could just briefly comment on how that might play into the rest of developing the BR3 parcel.
Okay, so emergency vehicle access is for fire trucks and emergency vehicles only. So there's a limited access off of Bollinger. Right now, it would be blocked off to regular traffic. Let me see if I can find a better diagram. Sorry. You know what? I'm going to go to my presentation because I know where that is. So if you look at the neighborhood diagram here, so the EVA is right here. And so the hotel exists here. There's a turnaround right here now. This road does not exist currently, but it would be necessary for access point because we're not going to be, when the next phase of residential, this 3A3 comes in, you're not going to have an access point off of Bollinger Canyon Road. And so we're going to need to look at how one gets into that structure, whether it's in and out from this access road here, or whether it's a loop system there. And so the final geometry of that will depend on the actual proposal for units on that 3A3 parcel. The EVA will actually be able to service both properties as well as the hotel to a point. So it just allows access for emergency vehicles into the core of the 3A neighborhood as a whole. Yeah.
And will that be something that, as project is developed, that they are aware that EVA road may become multi-purpose or multi-user as opposed to exclusively on this parcel?
Well, it's not multi-user.
Well-
It's only used by emergency vehicles. And so that'll be a requirement for that. Whether or not it also meets the requirements of emergency access to the 3A3 parcel, yes, it would. And again, the fire district isn't particularly concerned about who owns what piece. They want access and quick access.
But that doesn't require us to state something at this time that might be a future.
No,
requirement.
The EVA is going to be there, and in order for this, either the property is going to develop with their own emergency access, or they will take advantage of an existing EVA through an agreement. We have the luxury of having Bishop Ranch as the master builder of all this, and they have CCNRs and they have design control.
Okay.
So they're going to want it to be as efficient as possible and not have multiple EVAs when one can do the job for two properties.
Okay, well, thank you. I just was worried about,
Yeah.
Future use and not twisting us into a situation we couldn't get ourselves out of as the city.
Question.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else, gentlemen? Okay, thank you so much. At this time, we'd asked if we have public comment. We'd like to open public comment. I see we have received a letter. Thank you very much. Is there any speaker cards?
I do have a speaker card, Max Singh.
Very good. Welcome. Okay, now you get 3 minutes, and if I knew how to work the timer, it would show, but we'll take you on the honor system.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can I see the timer anywhere?
There it goes. Okay, thank you. The elves have helped me.
Perfect. Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Max Zhang, and I'm a resident of Windermere Ranch, where my family and I have lived since 2007. I am happy to support a 5- and 7-story multifamily project in San Ramon's core, since the Bay Area's housing crisis has never been more severe, and we do need more dense infill multifamily housing instead of single-family sprawl out in the hills like the house and neighborhood I spent 15 years growing up in. However, I am quite disappointed by some of the changes made to the project as compared to the City Walk Master Plan, and after the review of the Architectural Review Board, I'm disappointed by the loss of 86 units from 543 in the master plan to 457 in the current plan. I'm confused by the project offering 99 more parking spaces than required, 662 instead of the 563 required under the state density bonus provisions. San Ramon does not need more parking. I say that as a driver. It makes no sense to provide more housing for cars instead of more housing for people. I'm not really sure how the project, quote, demonstrates compliance with the city center mixed use zoning when it provides only 11,400 square foot of amenities, which will be resident serving, and I'm sure most of which cannot be retail. It'll be like a courtyard with a pool. don't know how that qualifies as mixed use. And I don't know why the Architectural Review Board insisted on a variety of aesthetic changes to the original submission in December 20th, 2023, that, in my opinion, I think make the project look worse, including adding noise to the massing for the southeast corner along Bollinger and changing the color scheme to an overwhelming dark green. If it were up to me, I would say that if the city wants to spend time negotiating with Avalon in the design review process, you should extract more meaningful concessions, such as more deed restricted units beyond the mandated 15%. After all, San Ramon still has 3,133 units left in its arena out of the 5,111 total that it is legally required to build for the sixth cycle. 70% of the units that we've actually built are for above moderate income households, households making 120% or more of Contra Costa median household income. That's $150,000 for a four-person household. This is despite the fact that these above moderate units only make up 39% of San Ramon's overall RHNA targets. We still have 1,988 low and very low income units to build. I don't know why we lost 86 units and a potential maybe a dozen or so low-income units by accepting a smaller amount of units for this project. I sincerely believe that if San Ramon allows the rest of the City Walk master plan to be built out like this, with fewer units, more parking spaces, a lack of retail, and affordability only to high-income households, City Walk will fail to meet its stated goals of creating a, quote, vibrant, mixed-use, transit-oriented district, providing, quote, much-needed affordable and workforce housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other speaker cards, but I would just like to clarify that the written public comment was received from Susan Garaventa.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. So at this time, we are going to, do we have a motion to close public comment?
I'll move to close public comment.
Okay. Excellent. Do you want to just do a roll call or are we going to put it? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So public comment is closed on this project. Okay, let me get to my, all right. So, commissioners, discussion? Because otherwise, perhaps we, go ahead. You look like you were ready to.
I
hit
just
the-
was going to ask
hit the button.
staff, could you clarify when a project comes in at lower units, as this one is, when it's part of a master plan that,
Yeah,
General.
in this particular case with the master plan, the 4,500 units over 25 years, the unit counts are estimated. There's, for lack of a better word, a tipping point in terms of how many units you can put on one site and park it correctly and meet all those requirements. And so the units that are not being built here are actually still in the pool of units possible. So you may end up with a different project elsewhere in the master plan that has higher units than was originally anticipated. Also, with regard to the mixed use concept, this is a broader horizontal mixed use. There's additional commercial space that's on the 2600 property. And so it's a combination of uses throughout the entire master plan area, not just on a single property.
Okay, very good.
So I just have follow up on that then. So when we are looking at the decrease, are we taking into account how many of the lower income are impacted by that? And is it just a percentage saying we're getting rid of 500, whatever the number is, and X percent is going to be that low income?
Right. And so our 15% must build requirement is applicable to the units being proposed at the time. So if there is a greater number on a different parcel, they'll have higher. I mentioned the no net loss tables that we have in there. That's part of the new reporting requirements that we need to be tracking our progress against the housing element. And so we'll be able to see where we are and where we need to focus on particular income categories to make up the difference within the RHNA cycle, or potentially zone for additional housing units somewhere else.
So those units that we lost that might have been low income will most likely appear somewhere else within the City Walk master plan down the road.
Yes,
potentially.
whether it's going to be this cycle. The other thing I have to remind you is with 4,500 units, it's spread over 3 housing cycles. So it could be this cycle, it could be next cycle. This next project, for example, the 3A3, could come in with 400 units instead of 300 and something. It's just a matter of the feasibility and design of the property and how it fits at a site level. That's the difference with the master plan. We're doing a theoretical numbers about whether it's going to work. Once you start value engineering and engineering to fit on the site, then you get a more realistic number. And so we're keeping the pool of units alive for elsewhere in the project, whether that's on 2600 or it could be one of the other sites on 3A here. So.
One last question. This is probably more for my ignorance of how everything might work, but do we require anyone to buy materials from the city, like local vendors, say paint? So instead of using Sherwin-Williams, who may no longer, or Kelly Moore, who no longer is in in our area, do we say we'd rather you use our local vendors to support the local vendors and the city, as opposed to say, hey, you're going next door to Pleasanton to buy the paint?
Yeah, there's no condition that I'm aware of regarding that. I'm not sure about the legalities of trying to do that. That you might have noticed there is a condition about sales tax for large providers of materials. So in a project that's buying $5 million worth of steel or something like that, they become their own sales tax provider, and then the city gets the sales tax associated with that. But it's a very narrow set of standards that would be applicable to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Discussion? Okay.
No, I think it's a nice project, and I think the changes look good from the ARB's perspective. I think the color scheme I do like. And I think the attention to the two areas that I was interested in, the Iron Horse Trail connection, was actually addressed really, really successfully. So thank you. And I think the corner at Bollinger and Camino Ramon, I know it's still part of a master sign plan that's still coming down the road, but I think the infrastructure and the spots to put it make a lot of sense to me. So I think it's a nice project.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I agree. I think it is a good project. I do believe this is quite a change for the city of San Ramon, building these types of units with the size of 5 and 7 stories, especially since there will probably be multiple in that area. But I do think it is necessary that we start thinking about how do we bring in people that aren't looking for single family homes or can't afford those single family homes. So I think it's a good option to look at that. So I'm a little concerned with the entire project there, with having new streets flooding into Camino Ramon and other places, when we looked at the 3A3, having another street and so forth, and how that might add to the traffic of the walking district. But to me, that's something we'll have to have a discussion with as we go forward with the entire master plan. So.
Thank you. Likewise, I do like the project. I do like the change in the color scheme, but could I just also drop a little hint that in the reading of the dissertation, the question about adding dog runs and the comment in the report was that, we think people will just walk their dogs on the Iron Horse Trail, which I agree is lovely. However, I would just encourage you, and as a civic responsibility, let's put some bag receptacles, okay, so that you're also good neighbors to the rest of us who use the trail. Okay, I'm seeing a nod in the back, so thank you. Yes, thank you. So we love our dogs, but we don't love their dog messes. Okay, so gentlemen, shall we go through? Is there a feeling to go through the resolution and move this along?
Yes.
Okay, so we are moving to the red line errata resolution, and so our usual procedure is to kind of look through and see if there's anything that we want to bring to our attention. So if we start on page 1.
Just to be clear, the red line errata is only the changes. It's not the entire resolution. So it's skipping pages. So it's just a
Okay,
few
all right.
changes that are made to the whole document.
Okay, so when we get to the voting part, you'll counsel me at how to phrase this correctly
Correct.
so that we get the right mixture of the changes, the necessary changes and the existing document. Thank you, Mr. Barr. All right, so back to the resolution. Let me go to page, let me find the right page here.
So it's packet page 20, but page 1 of that is the one that handed to us.
Okay, got it.
One of the resolutions.
All right, very good. Thank you, Commissioner Alpert. Okay, so anything on packet page 20, page 1 of 12, gentlemen? Other than the noted errata, the red line changes. Am I doing this right? Okay,
I was
I
just.
feel like I
pointing out
got
that
called an audible here at the line of scrimmage.
I am afraid to say I have one more errata.
Go for it.
This is resolution 0324. The CIP that came through last meeting, which came out of a different department, wasn't in our log, so sorry, I put the wrong number on there.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so we are reviewing resolution 03-24. Okay, so page 1 of 12, all good? Okay, as including the red line we received. Page 2 of 12, any corrections? All right. Page 3, issues, concerns? No? Okay. Moving along, I'm on page 5 and 6. No. Okay. Maybe I should just ask if there are any pages you do have objections to. Okay, otherwise we'll just go through the 12. All right. No, all good? Okay, I'm on page 10, in case you're keeping track. Okay, excellent. So we have gone through the resolution, including the changes as noted from staff. Okay. Now, we're all happy about that. All right, included in the resolution are the conditions of approval, so if we can turn to those. I think these have been pretty standard. And there are 11 pages of those. Do either of you have things you'd like to comment on before we get through all of them? You're good with all of them? Yeah, I did not have any objections to any of them. Commissioner Curtis?
And with
Okay.
the changes as noted on the dais?
Yes, as the changes noted on the dais. Okay. All right. So we are at that point where,
I will make a motion.
Okay.
To go ahead and approve resolution number 03-24. For the.
turn your mic on.
Excuse me, for the approval of the architectural, or excuse me, of the Avalon Bay Communities
Element plan.
development plan. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Including the conditions of approval as well
As amended tonight.
as amended
amended.
tonight.
Yes. All right, very good.
I will second.
Excellent. We have a second. And we are. Yeah. All right, so we have approved the motion of 3-0-0-2 no votes. So congratulations, we have approved your project as amended and with the corrections as noted. So we look forward to seeing how this adds to our community. So thank you so much.
And through the chair, the decision of the planning commission is subject to a 10-day appeal period.
That is correct. Okay, so we have 10 days. All right, excellent. Let me go to item 10 is non-public hearing action items. There are none. Item 11, study session, commissioner liaison reports and other interest or staff reports. So do either of you have a liaison report? No, and Parks meets tomorrow, so they have not met. Okay, staff, do you guys have information for us? Updates?
Okay, so the July 2nd Planning Commission will be canceled. Close proximity to the 4th of July holiday and this meeting. We also have a meeting scheduled for July 16th. We'll have the election of chair and vice chair, the year in review. We have a concept review for Bishop Ranch 11. And there's a couple other things that we're not sure will land on there yet, but we'll let you know on that. And then we are still working on the objective design standards, non-retail provisions, and then we are also moving with the Climate Action Committee. We have a meeting later this month to kick that task force off, I should say, not committee.
Great. Excellent. Gentlemen, anything else? Ms. Poon, anything? You wanna add some legal words of wisdom?
Yeah. you beat me.
Nope. Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. So we are going to adjourn